In this video, we delve into the Beanie Bubble, a movie about the Beanie Baby craze of the 90s. I still have dozens of them, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to be a billionaire soon.
This shelf here should buy a Gulf Stream.
Is this a joke? These are toys!
These are Beanie Babies! Have you been living under a rock?
I know what Beanie Babies are. By 1999, they were worthless.
In an era when the majority of movies coming out are absolute trash, it takes a lot to motivate me to pay for a movie in theaters. Therefore, I spend a lot of time searching for content on streaming services, none of which I pay for, because I'm awesome. Now, my wife kinda used to like Elizabeth Banks. Like we all kinda used to like Elizabeth Banks, before she blamed the failure of Charlie's Angels on sexism instead of accepting that it was a crappy movie. I mean, she eventually did, but initially she said, if this movie doesn't make money, it reinforces the stereotype in Hollywood that men don't go see women do action movies. I mean, it's weird how the failed remake of a fairly successful franchise, which has been around for literally decades, is the fault of sexism, yet somehow sexism couldn't take down all the previous entries in the franchise. But I digress.
That don't make no sense!
We saw this movie pop up on Apple TV and decided to give it a go, because we had nothing to lose but time. And our minds. To break it down, the story follows Ty, the founder of Ty, the toy company. He's played by Zach Galifianakis, who I didn't recognize at first because I've never seen him without a beard. I mean, it freaking blew my mind. The story jumps around from the 80s to the 90s and then back and then around and then like upside down and then it told you what year we were in, mostly. So it was slightly more convoluted, yet less confusing than a Christopher Nolan film.
Ignorance is our ammunition.
Essentially, Ty is an eccentric toy inventor who teamed up with Robbie, Elizabeth Banks, to start a toy company. Robbie is shown to be the driving force behind inspiring him and bringing him success in his early days. Now, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to continue summarizing the story in roughly chronological order, rather than the confusing movie timeline order. Moving down the line, the movie shows Robbie is the powerhouse behind selling the product, and Ty is the rich male beneficiary to her girl-bossity. Bossity? Look, I'll get this out of the way right now. This movie is a feminist love story to the three main women. While it isn't painfully shallow as the feminism in movies like The Last Jedi or Captain Marvel, it's clear the writer-director team had a motive in making Ty look less than deserving of his success. And the next example of this is his girlfriend Sheila and her kids. Ty essentially invents Beanie Babies for them and inspired by them, which may or may not have been true. The third major female character is Maya, an early employee of the company who comes up with the idea to customize the Beanie Babies and make them more collectible. There is also a scene where she, on a whim, tells a potential buyer one of the SKUs has been retired and he can no longer buy it. This is shown as the spark for the collector fad of Beanie Babies. She also came up with the idea they should build a website. And to be fair, her real-life counterpart, Lena Trevetti, has been credited with pioneering e-commerce. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I am not good at summarizing movies. Are you still following me?
Yeah, no.
Anyway, the story goes on. Ty listens to women before he doesn't listen to the women. And in the end, the bubble bursts because he listened to a man and not Maya. And the women live happily ever after. The ending titles say how great their lives turned out and only say that he was arrested for tax evasion, ignoring the fact that he's still a multi-billionaire and just had to pay a fine.
I haven't cried like that since Titanic.
This movie was so close to being good. I was actually very hopeful in the first act that I was going to really enjoy it. But then, well, we'll get to that in a little bit. In terms of acting, Zach Galifianakis' performance is great. You know what? Before we talk about that, I just want to take a quick look at Jeremy, Sheila's gay best friend, who, well, that's actually about all we know about him. He's black, he's nice, and actually we might not even know that he's gay. He might just be flamboyant. All I'm saying is that he was just there to be there. Spam the comments, hashtag Jeremy deserved better.
Jerry, I'm so sorry.
Okay, back to Zachy G. You really get a sense of who his character is. He's emotional, he's passionate, he's a bit zany and maybe a little bit creepy, but he's clearly driven and he has a vision. Well, he's basically an uber-successful version of another Zach Galifianakis character, Dale Baskets, lisp and all.
Do I look familiar to you?
Zach still really gets into the character and shines. Now, Elizabeth Banks, on the other hand, just feels like she's phoning it in. There are a lot of scenes where you can, to use a term my acting teacher used to use a lot, see her showing her work. It's like she started the process of developing this character, but then had a motive in how she wanted her to come off. So she's just trying too hard. Well, not really trying hard enough? It's hard to explain. Suffice it to say, she wasn't great. Sarah Snook, on the other hand, was. I knew who she was as a character and what she wanted. She wasn't driven by power or success, but by the love of her daughters. And you felt it. She is the example of what a strong woman should be. Stoic when a situation requires calm, and firm and forceful when it requires strength. She is not a girl boss, but she's an actual strong female character.
Strong woman! Strong woman! Strong!
Now, I've seen a handful of reviews of Geraldine Viswanathan's performance as Maya, and I've been confounded by the fact that so many thought she did an amazing job. It was fine. It was better than Elizabeth Banks, but that's honestly a pretty low bar in this movie. She was a smart woman who could do no wrong, and didn't have any real struggles. To be fair, she wasn't given a lot to work with. There were some family struggles, but they were just as shallow as the ones Freddie Mercury faced in Bohemian Rhapsody. Her parents weren't happy with her career choice, but she didn't actually have to sacrifice anything or even struggle with the conflict. She just had to wait until they accepted her for being successful.
You did it! Yay! Go you!
And look, if you're going to make up a bunch of stuff anyway, you might as well make a good story for her. Which brings me to my next point. The movie starts with the titles, "There are parts of the truth you just can't make up. The rest we did." All that did was set me up to constantly be wondering what they made up and what was actually true. I suppose this is true for any based on a true story movies, but I find it especially egregious when they're taking a real life person and making him look bad. Ty is a real human. And while the first part of the movie makes him look like an alright guy, by the end of it, he just seems like a selfish jerk. And I really don't know how much of it is true. So this movie is based on the book, The Great Beanie Bubble Book, Book of the Beanie Bubble Book, Book of the Great Beanie Bubble, by journalist Zach Bissonette. But the screenwriter only followed it loosely, it seems. For starters, Ty seems like kind of a loser at the beginning. But the real Ty was making 6 figures as a toy salesman in the late 60s, before he even started his toy company. That's crazy.
You're insane. Insane.
In the movie, they show Maya invented the idea of artificial scarcity to prop up the demand for Beanie Babies. But in reality, it was Brian, Chris, and Kevin King who came up with the idea. Not giving men credit for their accomplishments, I see.
Behind every successful woman is a man she has oppressed.
In the movie, his girlfriend's kids help him design some of the Beanie Babies, but it's actually unclear if his girlfriend and her children had very much to do with the success and the initial idea of Beanie Babies in real life. And though the invention of the Ghost Beanie Baby sounds accurate, the daughter's name was only on it for 2 months. It wasn't a whole thing years into the product's existence. And in the movie, Robbie is screwed out of her position at Ty. I always called it TY as a kid. Anyway, she was screwed out of the position after helping build it. But as far as I can tell, she wasn't. And she actually ran Ty UK without having to scheme to get it. Basically, the movie has an agenda. The whole point is to show how it was these 3 women who were responsible for the success of Beanie Babies. Which for Maya, aka Lena Trivedi at least, this is true. She got the short end of the stick and should have gotten a huge promotion. One which was denied her by the board, not by Ty unilaterally. That being said, Ty seems like a typical eccentric founder. He has a vision and he wants to be in control of carrying out that vision. But in the movie, it's made to look like a bad thing. He pushes Robbie out of the business, but we're never really given a reason why. And it didn't happen anyway, so they're just misrepresenting him. More than anything, it just feels like they didn't know what they were trying to say besides women good. I guess, but maybe you could be honest about that and just prop them up rather than belittling the male character. And I gotta be honest, I'm kind of losing the thread of what I'm trying to say because I feel like they lost the thread of what they were trying to say. Yeah, it's a pretty good excuse. They wanted to tell a story, but because of our culture these days, they felt the need to throw in political jabs here and there. Rose, who is a black woman, made the statement,
Because the system isn't designed for people like us.
Also, there's this one point early in the movie where they're talking about the terrible state of the economy in 1983 and go through these quick flashes of imagery that show Ronald Reagan. The editing clearly had the motive of making Reagan look bad, but the economy was already in a terrible place before Reagan was elected due to the stagflation of Jimmy Carter. So what point were they trying to make? I'm really not sure. It seems like they got lost in the third act because it got boring really quick. The actual message they should have tried to transmit was one of American opportunity and teamwork. Yes, Ty couldn't have made Beanie Babies a success on his own. Just like Elon Musk couldn't have made Tesla a success on his own. Visionaries need teams, and businesses need visionaries. Ty was a visionary, And instead of pulling him down in an attempt to prop women up, they could have celebrated the amazing things they created together and how Ty collaborated with them. Instead, it was just another petty attempt to pit identity groups against each other.
You're different, and I don't like you!
Thanks for subscribing. Maybe one of these days I'll get to review a movie I actually like, though it's seeming less and less likely every day. For now, check out this video, which is a movie I didn't like. Like this one.